Hey Book Dragons, welcome back to my channel. Glad you could be here. Today we're doing a book review. Let's get right to it. So about a month or so ago, an author reached out to me, a self-published author by the name of I Anonymous, a pen name of course, and asked me if I would be interested in reading and reviewing his book. He did give me a free copy of his book titled Gurzil in exchange for an honest review. And he prefaced it with the fact that he had recently watched my review of The Winter King by Bernard Cornwell, which is a historical fiction novel centered around the Arthurian legends. And I had not enjoyed that book immensely. It was okay, but it wasn't great for me. And so he said, well, some of the things that you didn't like about The Winter King, you might like about my book. So I'm like, oh, okay, sure, I'll give it a try. I love Arthurian legend, and so I wanted to give it a try and see what it was like. So he did send me a free copy of the book, and it is available on Amazon right now. If you're interested in purchasing it, I will leave a link in the description below so that you can check it out and get a copy. And this is the first book in the Wars of Wrath. So we'll get right into it. I'll tell you a little bit about the book, some of the pros and cons, and then tell you what I thought of the book overall. Okay? So it takes place several years after the fall of Rome, and the battles are going on between the Britons and the Saxons. So, it's a very similar time period to The Winter King, which is one of the reasons that he wanted me to check it out. And it focuses on a few main characters with some side characters thrown into the mix as well. So, you've got Prince George Bertilac. And my understanding is that he is sort of based on St. George the Dragon Slayer. If you're familiar with St. George and the Dragon, that myth, then you will be familiar with this character. We also have a woman named Sabra, who is a princess. Her father is the ruler of a minor kingdom that has come under the influence of the cult of Gurzil, and the king refuses to allow Gurzil to take his daughter Sabra as his queen, and so he sends Sabra off to live with her uncle, and so she kind of grows up in the household of her uncle, but she still kind of knows what's going on. She knows about all the political maneuverings that are happening. She knows about the cult of Gurzil. She's familiar with it, and so she is a main character in the story. It's really mainly her and George that we get the most information on. There's also another character called Una, who is the dragon's mistress, and she has her own motivations and things behind the scenes to kind of keep Gurzil all to herself. She wants to be kind of the sole focus of his attentions, and that was pretty interesting. We also have Morgan, from the Arthurian legends, Morgan Le Fay, half-sister of King Arthur, and she is in the story. Briefly, there's not a whole lot of mention of her, but she features into the story primarily as a consort for George Bertilac. They do have somewhat of a romantic relationship together. And then there are some minor viewpoints briefly from King Arthur, Merlin, Sir Gawain, and Sir Galahad. So you've got a handful of other minor characters as well. I won't go into a lot of detail because some of it would involve spoilers, and I don't want to do that to you. I'm trying to keep this a spoiler-free review. And we're going to talk now about some of the pros and cons that I found in the story. So we'll go ahead and start with the pros first. And the biggest pro for me in this book was Gurzil. This book promised dragons. The author promised me there's a great dragon in the story. And the book more than delivered on that promise. And what's really interesting is you got some classic draconian tropes like hoarding gold and seducing beautiful maidens, that sort of thing. You've got those tropes. But then you got these other things in Gurzil's background. You begin to learn about Gurzil and his origins. And it's really cool. I won't go into the backstory, but it's not your typical dragon backstory. The author tries really hard and does quite a good job of tying it into the historical backdrop, specifically things out of some of the major religions and cults of the day, and ties that into Gurzil's backstory. So I thought that was really, really fascinating. And of course, Gurzil is the leader of a cult that focuses on him, worships him. And with most people in this setting, dragons are myths at best. But then it starts to become apparent that this dragon is not actually a myth. This dragon is actually real. So when certain people are invited in to go and worship in the tent of Gurzil, they think they're just worshiping this absent deity like all the other major religions. But Gurzil is actually there, and he's actually presiding over the rituals and demanding human sacrifices and stuff like that. It's just really, really cool. Gurzil is positively menacing, and I really enjoyed the dragon. It was just really well done there. Another thing that I really liked is there is magic in this story. So one thing that really pushes me away from historical fiction is the lack of magic. A lot of people call A Song of Ice and Fire a historical fantasy, just mainly because there is very low magic. Magic is almost non-existent in George R. R. Martin's story, but there is a little bit of it. And I would compare this book to that as well, in the sense that the magic is there. It plays a very, very minor role, but it's not this flamboyant magic system just all over the place. But it is there, and it's an integral part of the story. One of the really cool things that I enjoyed in the book was there's some shape-shifting in the book. So that's one of the specific magical acts in the book, and I thought it was really cool. Some other things that this has going for it is it's really easy to read. It is a short book, so it reads quickly, but not only that, the prose is very accessible, very easy to read. I found myself just really quickly going through it, and I think any reader would be able to pick this book up and read it very easily. There's not a whole lot of complex wording or anything like that. So just some really, really solid writing, I thought. Now, I do want to talk about the cons. One of the major cons for me that I found is there's very little character dialogue. There is some, but not a whole lot. And I'm a very character-driven reader, so I like to learn about the world and the things that are happening in the world and the politics through the characters, through the eyes of the characters, how they're experiencing it. And you get a little bit of that, but very little. The book is mostly exposition, telling you about the historical data that's happening in this particular setting. And not that that's a bad thing. The history is really interesting. It's obvious that the author researched this book heavily to make sure that he was getting an accurate description of the setting and the world at the time that these things were happening. but there was so much exposition that it felt like the characters were just there when they popped up, and they were kind of reinforcing the history lesson that you had already been reading about. So I would have liked to see a little bit more of a balance between character development and character growth, character dialogue, and the historical data. And so that really kind of took me out of the story because, as I said, I really enjoy learning about everything mostly from the characters' points of view. I know with historical fiction there's a lot of information that needs to be given about the time, and I get that. So I guess what I'm saying is I would have preferred to have more showing and less telling. And there were some issues with grammar. Some of the word choices that the author used were not words that I felt like would be in the vernacular of the historical period that he was writing about. Now, this is an advanced reader copy that I have here, so I do understand from what he told me that he has fixed a lot of those inconsistencies. So I'm really excited about that to eventually maybe reread it and see those things fixed. So I can confidently say to you that when you get the book for yourself, those are going to be fixed and the story will feel more well put together. And there were also some grammatical errors as well that I understand the author has fixed. So that's great, right? It's really good to see that he's taken the feedback from editors and other people that have read the story and fixed the final product that you're going to be getting. So overall, what are my thoughts on this book? I thought it was good. It wasn't great for me. I thought it was great for a debut novel for the author. And I am planning to read his other books. I understand the second book comes out sometime late this summer. I think maybe August or September, around that time. And I'm hoping to get my hands on that and read that as well, because I am invested in the story that the author is trying to tell. So curious to see where it goes. I'm actually hoping to see more of King Arthur and Merlin, and maybe there will be a little bit more magic in the story. And I'm definitely excited to see more of Gurzil. And I definitely recommend that you pick this book up, guys. For you, it may be a book that you just want to get on ebook. But if you prefer physical books, you can definitely get it in physical book as well. He has paperbacks and he also has hardback editions. So, as I said, you can click the link in the description below to purchase one for yourself. And I highly recommend it, guys. It's not daunting at all. It's a little over 200 pages. Despite the things that I found were cons, I think the pros for me outweigh the cons. So if you are watching this and you have read Gurzil, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if it sounds interesting to you and you've not read it, do you plan to pick it up? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure that you are reading more books, guys, and I will talk to you soon.